Please be seated. The chamber now resumes the hearing. Next, the chamber gives the floor to the defense counsel for Mr. Nguyen Chia. If you have further question for this witness, you may now proceed.
Mr. President, would you be able to indicate how many more minutes I have for the examination of this witness? An hour?
Mr. President, I have already informed that the defense teams, both of the defense teams, have 2 sessions in this afternoon for your questioning. And if you cannot finish your question today, there may be some time tomorrow morning for both defense teams. But I suggest that you should try to finish your question today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I have a question to you about what you said an hour earlier today, that you have been a committee member involved in the collecting of bones for the stupa at Krangtachan. Is that correct? And if yes, could you tell the court when you became a member of this committee?
Answer. I was not one among the committee members to collect bones. I was members of the building committee.
Could you tell the court, Mr. Witness, what your activities were in this committee? What exactly did you do?
Answer. We are responsible for building the halls, the religious halls, and also the hall for children to study.
And were you also responsible for the construction of the stupa in which the skulls are contained?
Answer. Actually, I am not involved in building the stupas. I was involved in constructing dining halls. We have the contribution from our villagers, our people, and I was the one who is in the construction committee.
And do you remember when you were appointed to do this, to do these activities?
Answer. It was in 2006. I submitted a request to the village chief to include me in the construction committee.
Mr. Witness, you also mentioned the fact that you have been a soldier after 79. When was that?
Answer. After 1979, I was a soldier from 1980 to 1997. After that, I quit my military service.
So you were in the army 15 years, is that correct?
Answer. Yes, that is correct.
Where were you stationed?
Answer. I was stationed in Tram Kok District, Takeo Province.
Mr. Witness, do you know anything about a criminal investigation by the Ministry of Propaganda and Culture to the events that happened in DK?
Answer. I do not know about that investigation. What I know is that Democratic Cambodia committed torture against people.
Mr. Witness, do you know anything about an investigation by the Tram Kok District Hall Culture and Fine Arts Office in the year 1996?
Answer. I do not know about that.
Mr. Witness, I would now like to take you back to a particular day in the years 75, 79, specifically after June 1976. And even more specifically about the day that you saw, you said, that somebody during this interrogation, a prisoner, was suffocated by a plastic bag. Do you remember that day well?
Answer. I do not remember the exact dates. I was also a prisoner at that time, and I could see one incident that a prisoner was suffocated by a plastic bag. After I saw the incident, I tried to forget it.
I understand, Mr. Witness, but I would still like to take you back to that day. I'm not asking for a specific day, but do you remember whether it was in the hot season or in the rainy season?
Actually, it was not in the rainy season that prisoner would be interrogated. Prisoner would be interrogated any time they want.
No, but Mr. Witness, my question was the day that you saw somebody being suffocated with a plastic bag. Do you remember whether that day was was it in the rainy season or was it in the dry season?
Answer. It was in dry season.
Do you remember how long you had already been at Krang Tachan when the events of that particular day unfolded?
I had been there for 3 months already.
So would it be fair to say that the day that you saw a prisoner being suffocated with a plastic bag was in September, approximately September 1976?
Answer. That is correct.
Would it be fair to say that that was a day in the wet season of that year?
Answer. I did not know whether it was in rainy or dry season. I did not know how to read rainy or dry season. I knew only that the day was hot.
Mr. Witness, that day you woke up in the morning. Can you tell us where you were sleeping?
No.
Answer. In the Cambodia security office, I was asked to pick up a croissant fruits in the morning.
My question was, Mr. Witness, do you remember where you were sleeping before you woke up in the morning of that day?
No.
Answer. I slept near the detention building on a bed under deal tree.
So you were sleeping on the compound, but not in the same building as the prisoners, correct?
But Mary.
Answer. That is correct.
Do you remember from that day the faces or maybe even some names of the prisoners who were detained at Krang Tachan?
Answer. These people are all deceased. How could I remember them? I could recognize or remember only those who survived, rather.
Let me ask another question. Do you remember that particular day, how many prisoners approximately were detained in the prisons?
Answers. I did not count the prisoner at the time. I could see the detention buildings were filled with prisoners.
That particular day, do you remember, I'll ask it again, any faces, maybe somebody that you knew from a village who was detained there?
Answer. Prisoners were not allowed us to see. Prisoners were kept, and after that they were killed. So my villagers were all killed, so I did not remember them.
When you woke up that morning, did you have a peek at the prisoners who were there?
Answer. Prisoners were not outside of the prison cells. They were put in the cells or in the buildings. After interrogation, they were placed in the prisons. They were not allowed to stay outside of the prisons.
Did you see any of the prisoners maybe in the days before arrive at Krang Tachan?
Answer. So you asked about prisoners. During the time I was at Krang Tachan, or prisoner before the time I arrived there. So could you repeat your question, please?
I'm asking you about the people who were detained that day. Maybe it would be possible that you had seen some of them arrive the night before or 2 nights before. Do you remember that?
Answer: I have already told the court. Prisoners were brought in every night. 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 people were brought in most of the day, almost of the day.
Let me rephrase, Mr. Witness. What do you remember of the faces or maybe even names of the prisoners who were brought in the night or 2 nights before the day that you saw somebody being tortured with a bag? Do you have any recollection of prisoners being brought in the day before that day or 2 days before that day?
Answer: I did not remember.
Mr. Witness, in the days before that day, did you see any prisoner being brought from the prison building to the interrogation building?
Answer: I saw every day. I saw this every day.
That was not my question, Mr. Witness. I'm asking for a specific day, the days before that day that you saw somebody being tortured with a bag. Did you see any prisoners being brought from the prison building to the interrogation room?
Answer: yes.
Please describe what you saw, Mr. Witness.
Answer: prisoners were brought out to be interrogated every day.
That was not my question, Mr. Witness. I'm asking you to remember what you saw the days before. Did you recognize a person? How did the prisoners look like that you saw? Can you give me some details as to what you saw the days before?
Answer: I saw a prisoner was brought to be put a plastic bag on him. He was a little bit fat. The purpose of putting the plastic bag on his head is to make this person weak so that he could confess.
So you're speaking about a man who was a little bit fat. Can you give some more details, more things that you remember?
I could not remember anything else besides that he was fat.
Was he tall, short? Was it a man?
He was quite tall, and he was a man. Rarely, a woman was not interrogated. Woman was rarely not interrogated.
Do you remember seeing this man, this fat man, in the prison before that day he was allegedly tortured?
Answer: I did not see the person you described.
So the first time that you saw him was where?
Answer. I saw him when I walked out of my sleeping place, when I brought the sour fruit, that is croissant, to the kitchen for cooking.
Was he the only person that you saw that morning?
But
Answer. Yes, that is correct.
Do you remember what time it was when you saw him?
mong 9
Answer. It was 9 a.m. in the morning.
Was that after breakfast?
Answer. I saw him when I brought the sour fruit or croissant fruit for cooking. It was at 9 a.m. At that time, we did not have breakfast yet.
Could you explain to me where you went, from which point to which point, bringing this food? I'm not quite sure if I understand exactly where you saw this man and how that happened.
ខ្ញុំទៅបេះផ្លែ
I woke up and went to pick up the sour fruits, and I was asked to bring the sour fruits to the kitchen. After that, I was asked to split the woods for the kitchens. During that time, I saw the man was suffocated with a plastic bag.
Mr. Witness, I'm still in the morning. I'm trying to figure out exactly where you saw him. Did you see him in the presence of other prisoners?
Answer. I saw this man were with the guards. During the time this prisoner was interrogated. This prisoner was not together with other prisoners.
So he was the only prisoner that you saw that day on the compound?
Answer. At that interrogation place, I saw only this man. There were not many prisoners to be interrogated at the same time, so during that time I saw only one prisoner at that interrogation place.
My question was, did you only see him walking on the compound? Was he the only prisoner that you saw walking on the compound?
Answer. During the time I was walking and I was bringing sour fruits to the kitchen, and I was also asked to bring the woods for the kitchen. During that time I saw that man while I was walking to the kitchen. I was trusted. That is why I was allowed to bring in stuff into the kitchen. The kitchen was not a place that allows anyone to go into. Only one who is trusted could go into that kitchen.
this fat man that you saw, was he walking by himself or was he escorted by guards?
Answer. This man was walked by security guards, and after interrogation, this man was suffocated with a plastic bag.
Please, Mr. Witness, stay, if you will, in the chronology. Do you remember who were the guards that were escorting this fat man?
Answer. They were guards. They were interrogated. He or she was a guard, and he or she was an interrogator. The name was Jane.
So it was Cheng who was escorting the prisoner, correct?
But
Answer. Yes, that is correct.
You saw them walk. Where did they go?
that
The guard walked the man to the south, to the interrogation place.
Then what happened?
Then, interrogation took place. After the person was suffocated with a plastic bag, and after several interrogations, and after this person fainted, this person was brought back into the prison building.
One step at a time, Mr. Witness. You saw two guards bringing this fat prisoner to the interrogation room. They went inside that little house. Then what happened?
Answer. Upon arrival, the prisoner was asked to sit down and hands were handcuffed. Interrogation started. Those who deny to confess, they would be beaten. And as for plastic bag, I could see only this man was suffocated with a plastic bag, and later on I did not dare to look at the interrogation because it was scary.
Mr. Witness, I'm not sure if I follow. You see the two guards going with the prisoner into the building. Door closes. Where were you standing? What was happening? What did you hear?
Mr. President, witness, please hold on. Co-prosecutor, you may now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any objection if counsel wants to spend his time about rather particular details about a day a long time ago. What I would ask from counsel is that he not misstate and mislead the evidence. This witness was examined in detail about this point and said this was not a house. It didn't have doors. It had a roof. It was an open structure. So I have no problems, but counsel should not be misleading the witness and creating a false record here.
I'll move on, Mr. President. Those two guards went with this prisoner into this building. Where were you standing?
At that time, I was standing to the northeast near the kitchen hall, and the interrogation place was about from where I am now to the door. So I would estimate it was about 20 meters away.
Am I to understand, Mr. Witness, that everybody who was standing where you were standing could see what happened inside in that building during the interrogation?
I saw everything.
Can you tell me where the guards or the interrogators were sitting and where the prisoner was sitting? Was there a table? Can you tell me something about the furniture in that building?
There was a table, and there were two other tables for the interrogators. There was a chair for the prisoner, and the guard who was standing to the side of the prisoner. And then they started the interrogation.
So from the distance, you could see them sitting down and starting to ask questions to the prisoner. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Were they using a typewriter or were they using a pen to write down the answers?
They used a pen.
Who was using the pen?
The deputy, was named Ping, used a pen, and Pai An was the interrogator.
Could you hear from that distance the questions that the interrogators were asking?
During the interrogation, of course, I heard the questions because they spoke loudly. They asked, "What were you doing?" And the prisoner responds, "No, I did not do anything." And the interrogator said, you are stubborn, you are a colonel, you work as a CIA agent. Confess. If you don't confess, I'll beat you.
What was the first question, do you remember, Mr. Witness, that was asked to the prisoner?
I cannot recall the details of every question because I heard the questions from a distance. I could remember the gist of the questions, that what he was doing or what was his rank during the former colonial regime. That's how I remember it.
I would like you to think a little bit more, Mr. Witness. Do you remember other specific questions that were asked?
During the interrogation, sometimes they accused prisoners of breaking a plough head, or they stole a chicken or a duck, or that they opposed the cooperative. There were many questions, and I cannot remember them all. As you know, it happened many years ago. But mainly the question focused on the American CIA or the UN CIA.
Mr. Witness, I would appreciate if you don't give general answers. I'm asking you, do you remember specific questions being asked by the interrogators, and do you also remember the answers that were given by this particular prisoner?
The only thing I remember clearly is what was his position and what rank did he hold at the time?
What was his answer?
Some prisoners confessed truthfully that they were a colonel or that they were a one-star general, depending on how they were beaten. And then they were asked how many of them altogether. And based on that answer, more people would be arrested.
But that was not my question. What did the fat prisoner answer to the question what rank he had?
By then, he could not say anything else because he became very weak after he was suffocated with a plastic bag. He did not respond, and for that reason, he was suffocated with a plastic bag, and he became unconscious, and he was taken back to the building.
Mr. Witness, how long was the prisoner inside before he was suffocated?
I did not know how many minutes he was suffocated with a bag. The next thing I saw was that the guards dragged him back into the building where he was detained, and next day he died, and then he was buried.
Mr. Witness, you're standing on the compound. You watch the prisoner go into this building. He sits on the table. He gets a question. And my question to you is, how long did it take before those two guards put a plastic bag over his head?
It depends on prisoners' responses. If they responded quickly, then they would not be suffocated with a plastic bag. But for those who refuse to respond, then they would be beaten and beaten again. And the next thing, they would be suffocated with a plastic bag.
That was not my question, Mr. Witness. My question was, how long did it take for these guards to use a plastic bag to make this prisoner answer? Was it 5 minutes? Was it half hour? Was it 2 hours? Was it all day? Please tell me.
They would not suffocate the prisoner for 4 hours. It was only for minutes, but I could not know how many minutes.
Maybe that was the translation, but my question was, Mr. Witness, how long did it take? How many questions were asked during how much time before the guards or the interrogators used the plastic bag to make this prisoner answer questions?
They only asked 2 questions. What was his position and what was his rank?
So is your testimony that the prisoner was inside for a minute, and after a minute, let's say roughly, the guards or the interrogators took the bag and tried to suffocate him? Is that your testimony?
But
Yes.
So would it be right then to conclude that the prisoner was inside 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
President, Mr. Witness, you do not need to respond to this question. You do not need to respond to any assumption made by the counsel.
My question, let me rephrase, Mr. President. My question to you, Mr. Witness, is how long exactly did it take before the prisoner was brought out of that building again, after he was apparently suffocated?
Before he was suffocated with a plastic bag, they would interrogate the prisoner for 10 to 20 minutes, and when the prisoner refused to respond, then they would use a plastic bag. And of course, with the plastic bag covered over his head, he could not respond.
Could you explain, Mr. Witness, how these interrogators put the plastic bag on the head of this prisoner?
How could you ask me to provide any further details? I have repeatedly answered your questions. The purpose of using the bag was to force the prisoner to respond or to confess on his position or the activities he involved in, or on other former civil servants. And a prisoner who was suffocated with a bag would not be able to respond because he felt too weak.
A question, Mr. Witness, again. How did the guards put this plastic bag on the head of this prisoner? Who of the two did it? Did they use force? Can you explain a little bit what you saw?
They did not have to force to use the plastic bag. They only use on selected prisoners who refuse to respond to their questions during the interrogation.
Again, Mr. Witness, that was not my question. My question was, how did these two guards or interrogators do it? Did they use force with this fat prisoner?
First, they interrogated the prisoner, then they kicked and they beat the prisoner. They used violence or force against the prisoner in order to force them to confess before they used the plastic bag.
So now the interrogators also kicked the prisoner, I understand. Who kicked the prisoner and how did he do that?
They actually wore my fork, American-made boot, to kick a prisoner during the interrogation.
Mr. Witness, please don't answer in general terms. I'm asking about what you saw that morning on that day. Who of the two interrogators kicked this prisoner?
It was Tacheng.
And how did he do it? Which was it, his left leg or his right leg?
He used his right foot, and when the right foot got hurt, he used his left foot to kick the prisoner.
Can you tell the court what the reaction of the prisoner was?
Of course, there was no reaction because the prisoner was handcuffed and he was difficult in breathing because of the torture.
But did the prisoner maybe say something, please stop, or I will tell you my rank, or can you be a little more specific in the details, Mr. Witness?
Some did confess. They confessed that please don't torture me, while others refused to respond. They would bit their lips and remained silent despite the beating. And some would just confess anything when they were beaten.
Again, Mr. Witness, that was not my question. My question was, what did this prisoner answer to that question? What was his reaction to him being beaten? What did he say?
There was no reaction. He remained silent.
Did he speak at all that morning?
Initially, he said that he did not have any position, that he was a tricycle driver, but those interrogators did not believe him.
What did they say when he gave that answer?
They did not believe him, and they continued their interrogation. They accused him of being an American CIA, and they showed him a report as well.
What was that? What report, do you remember?
I cannot recall it.
But why do you call it report?
President, please wait. Counsel, you may proceed. Kong Sam-on, I apologize for my interruption. My client said my client is fatigued and he cannot continue following the proceedings. Would the bench please consider the adjournment for today's proceedings?
He cannot even follow from the holding cell? Understand, he cannot follow from here. Could he follow from the holding cell? Please note we are talking 10 minutes, basically. 10 minutes left.
Counsel Kong Sam-on, Mr. President, my client Kit Sampon would like the bench to adjourn the proceeding. However, if the chamber wishes him to continue following the proceedings from the holding cell downstairs, he would abide by that decision. President, the Chamber has heard the request by the accused Kir Sampon through his counsel to follow the proceedings through the holding cell downstairs due to exhaustion, to personally follow the proceeding in the court for the remainder of today's proceeding as we try to expedite the proceedings. For that reason, we, the Chamber, would like Mr. Kir Sampon to follow the proceedings in the holding cells downstairs through a remote means, and the AV unit UN started to link the proceeding to the holding cell downstairs for the remainder of today's proceeding. Security personnel UN started to take Mr. Kir Sampon to the holding cell downstairs to follow the proceedings for the remainder of today's proceeding. President Council Coupe, please repeat your last question to the witness due to the interruption, as the witness may not recall that question.
Mr. Witness, you said that the interrogators showed a report. Can you tell us why you think it was a report?
Because they wanted to know about the stories or the history of who did what based on the reports, as there were reports from the cooperative or the village as who did what during the former regime, or which rank that some people held.
Mr. Witness, again, you answer in general terms. My question is why you think what you saw was some kind of report that was shown by the interrogators to the prisoner.
Because when I saw a document, I presumed it was a report and it was shown to the prisoner. And I believe it was a report made from the village.
Why do you believe that, Mr. Witness?
I believe so, because at that time people could live or die based on the report from the base. And Chan was the execution site, and they did that based on the report from the village and the commune level.
Mr. Witness, I'll go back to the suffocating with the plastic bag. How long did it last, that suffocating?
I did not have a watch to time the suffocation. I saw it and then I walked away. In fact, later on I returned and then I saw him being walked back to the building where he was detained.
And when was that you saw him walking back?
It was around 10 o'clock in the morning.
So is your testimony that everything lasted around an hour? Would that be a fair assumption, or am I wrong?
That is correct.
And is your testimony that this is the only time that you saw an event like this when you were on the compound?
President, Mr. Witness, please hold on, and the International Court Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Mr. President, I'd ask counsel to be more specific in his question. An event like this is rather vague. Is he asking him whether this is the only occasion he saw suffocation with a plastic bag, or is he asking him a different, broader question?
Mr. President, I was asking the witness whether this was the only time during his presence at Krang Tai Chan that he saw a man being suffocated with a plastic bag. Mr. Witness, was this the only time that you saw something like this happening?
I saw it for one time, and after that I did not try to watch it anymore.
So what happened to the man when he was brought to his cell? Do you remember?
Nothing happened to him because next day he died and he was dragged out and buried. That was his last day on earth. He was severely beaten and died. As I said, the next day he was dragged out and buried.
How do you know that, Mr. Witness?
The President, Mr. Witness, please watch the microphone when it is operational with the red light, then you can speak. Witness. In the morning, sometimes I was used to open the door, and I saw the prisoner died, and Soi San and Tachan were ordered to dig a pit to bury that prisoner's body.
My question is about the prisoner, the fat prisoner. Where did you see his dead body?
It was inside the building.
Which building?
It was in the second building.
Can you explain what you mean with the second building?
It was the second building where they house prisoners. The buildings were used to house prisoners regardless of the severity of their mistakes or offense, as long as there were rooms to accommodate prisoners.
So you saw his dead body in the prison building between the other prisoners? Is that my understanding?
He was in between other prisoners.
So you were able to have a look at the prisoners in that building, is that correct?
I could see them every day whenever I was asked to carry the urine container as fertilizer for the rice field. And I had to carry the urine container twice a day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon.
Mr. Witness, where was the dead body lying exactly?
He died in the second building.
That was not my question. Where was his body lying?
It was in a bed to the south side within the second building.
In a bed? He was not in shackles?
Look.
He was in a bed and his ankles were shackled.
And he was surrounded by other prisoners, is that correct?
Other prisoners were lying in a row, like a row of pigs in between.
Can you describe what you saw when you came in that building? You saw the dead body. What else did you see?
I saw his dead body. I saw other prisoners lying in a row in that building.
Is it my understanding that you saw him walking back from the interrogation place to the prison cell? And if that is correct, how was his general condition? Do you remember?
He was in bad shape. He was actually carried into the building.
Do you know why that was?
Because he was beaten severely and he could not walk by himself. He did not have food to eat for a few meals and he was beaten severely and his hands were also cuffed. President, Council Kong Sam On, do you have the floor? Kong Sam On, I apologize, Mr. President. I've been informed by the people downstairs that the blood pressure of Kisampon is high and he cannot follow the proceedings. And I would like to request for the adjournment for today's proceeding. President, thank you for that information, and the time is appropriate for today's adjournment. The chamber will adjourn now and will resume tomorrow starting from 9 o'clock in the morning. And tomorrow the chamber will continue to hear the remainder of the testimony of the witness, Ms. Sokha, and then to hear the testimony of a civil party, TCCP, 296. And we would like to inform the parties and the public about tomorrow's proceeding. Court officer, in cooperation with the witness protection, please arrange for the transport of this witness to his appropriate accommodation and bring him back to this courtroom before 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. And security staff, you are instructed to take the two accused back to the detention facility and have them back in the courtroom tomorrow morning before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.